Hello, folks. Welcome to this episode of On the Board. I'm just doing a follow-up to my previous video concerning the pen and ink drawing that I did of Doctor Strange. As you see in front of you here, I have a few more reference pictures from the various comic book art, and it's not all of the references I have, but one of the reasons I'm putting this video up here is because I found my reference. I didn't have it that day. I'm kicking it around. The actual pencil drawing of Doctor Strange I inked directly over, of course. But the other day, 2 days ago, when I decided to go in and get some photocopies for various other projects, I had realized that I had also made a photo, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I try to do this a lot now. I had made a copy. I had made a copy of the original rough sketch, or what I guess you could call a contour drawing. Anyway, first up, let me just show you something right off the bat, which was part of the referencing. Hold on a second here. What did we do with... Oh, yeah, right over here. Okay, hold on. Oh, boy. Bear with me, folks. Yeah. Now, first off, here's the reference. These are reference that I used for that face shot of Doctor Strange. Hold on a second. I just, I'm putting this up here because I realize I have these available, so I might as well make them part of the video. Because I thought of something later, after I had posted. I had just finished that drawing, and, I just wanted to get it up. But at the time, yeah, I didn't think to use... Here we go. Here's the reference, right? Now... And, hold on a second. Let me put these together, actually. I'm going to put this off to the side so you can kind of, well, it's on the wrong angle, but you can, I'll put it up top instead. How's this? Put this up here like this. Okay, first I'll just show them together. See, here's the reference. There's the contour drawing on the bottom, as you can see. This isn't working. I'm going to have to put one of these down. Hold on a second. So here's the reference photo, and here's the contour drawing that I did. Just a rough sketch, outline. You can see right away, at least I hope you can see. Hold on a second. Let me brighten this up a bit to make sure we can get a better view of our picture here. Okay, what I'm getting at is you can see, you should be able to, oh boy, I don't know how that's showing up there. But anyway, you can see, I keep telling you what you can see, and I can't even see it. But what you can see there is the difference between the two, but the basic outline. Okay. Yes, you can see the difference, right? But, you see, that's not important. Let me explain something. Here we have it. Again, the reference, right? 1 second now. This is not going well. I should have planned. Yeah, so basically what I wanted to say is, though they are quite different, the important thing when I came across this reference was like, oh good, okay, I need a likeness. I needed a likeness of the film actor's face for this portrait drawing because I wanted to capture a likeness. And I wanted that more so than the comic books because the person this is going to is more familiar with the movie than that. So I had to go for that. But in doing that, it didn't have to be perfect. And I suggest that if you want it perfect, then just, maybe you can get some, you could trace it, in other words. But I used a gesture drawing, just a rough outline. And you can see, like I said before, the difference, right? Profound. And if you look at the hairstyle, it's a little bit different too. It didn't have to be exact. I mean, if you really look at it. But if you want to go for exactness, then do that, okay? Some people are doing that a lot, and I'm going to talk about a couple of instances where I've experienced that with a friend of mine and an acquaintance. And it was very... Anyway, I'm going to save that for that video. But anyway, that's not the point of this. So with the contour drawing, the most important thing was to get... The most important thing, folks, I'm telling you, when I was trying to capture the likeness, was the outline of the profile. That's very important. Now, there's different ways you can go about it. Now, once you get to a certain point, you can oftentimes just eyeball it, and it works. You'll look at the lines and you'll go, okay, yeah, I've got the likeness. But what's actually happening when you're doing it is, in this case where I was eyeballing it, your mind's... I was going to say your mind's eye, but it's like your little calculator. It's calculating between the space between... you pick points, right? It could be from the tip of this man's pupil on the profile to the edge of the brow that's showing. To the pupil, to the tip of the nose. And then you're looking at, well, what is the radius under the bulb of the nose? What is the curve of the nose? How far back did the nostril flare go up to the... to where the cheekbone starts, etc., etc., etc. But these are all measurements. I mean, basically, okay, this is going to sound incorrect, and you're going to say that's not true. But in a way, it is that virtually, when you're talking about eyeballs, nose, and a mouth, virtually everyone's face is the same. But it's the traits and angles, radiuses, distances that determine the likeness. That's all it is. Like, you shouldn't be intimidated by it. I'm not great at portraiture work at all, profiling, etc. But I'm learning. But that's not my thing, That I'm more about figure work and whatnot. But anyway, another thing to concern yourself with is the angle that you can see here, down from the bottom of the nose to the tip of the chin, etc. What type of chin? Is it a round chin? Is it a square jaw? Etc., etc., etc. You go through all of that. The distance between here. If you're going to like something less specific, right? But still important. The distance between the crook of the eye to the ear and the lobe and all that, right? And as I said, look at the hairdo. It's not quite the same. If you see here. And in fact, actually, even the light source on the gray on the side, I wasn't happy with. I wanted to make it more, so I outlined my own feathering on the side, if you know what I mean, right? To make it more wingy and stuff, so it would be more profound, because that's what I wanted to go for. Because I really wanted it to show much like, not exactly, but much like the comic book stuff. Okay, I wanted to cover all that, but I wanted to cover that because I saw those references and I thought, yeah, put that in the video. But what I wanted to do is actually put I already framed it up, but I'm gonna put it back up there. I took it out of the frame. I'm gonna post it back up here for you to see. And the idea here will be to bring the camera right up to it instead of bringing the camera back where it's, where you're supposed to view it from, at least 1.5 feet back or whatever. Just like a painting, you're supposed to look at something from behind. But I want to bring the camera up close so you can see the crudity of lines that go into making an image. Like, don't be intimidated. That's the other thing. Don't be intimidated by certain things, aspiring artists out there. Hold on, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, folks, got him up there again. On the board, he's mounted on the back of a glossy sheet of paper that came with the frame. I just picked up a frame in the dollar store for now. I'd like to get one better, but shotgun moment, I wanted to get this off. So I thought, don't at least put it in a frame. Maybe it can semi-protect it anyway. Different story altogether. But the thing I was saying about it, is, yeah, in order to get my likeness here, it was just about getting this section here proper. You can get it if you concentrate and look. It takes a bit more time, but if you aren't gonna, I don't know. I'm telling you, it can be done, okay, with some measurement. Eventually, you learn to eyeball. Like, you'll look, and you can, your eye becomes trained to, whatever, it can look and see, it can determine how far something is from another, whatever, and you can get that likeness rather quick, and then you can concentrate on the rest of your drawing and then embellish and bring it up. The thing I wanted to mention about that, and I'm going to mention it briefly here, and I think I'll save it for another video in detail, but yeah, there was another artist I had known, I met through a transaction sale online, and later I found out she was an artist, and she sent me some pictures on my phone. She was doing various superheroes and whatnot, but I noticed her thing was profiles and stuff, which I don't know. There's some sort of, I guess it's a thing. It has been a thing for a few artists out there doing it, but they were extraordinary, really high detailed. It was photorealism, but she captured these images with pencil crayons. You've probably seen this sort of thing before, where it's just incredible, really detailed work. I wouldn't, I was going to say I wouldn't call them realistic, but they are quite realistic. The texture of them aren't, but they detail. But yeah, this went on, and I was telling her, you're so talented, you could put these up. And there was a question, but she was, I don't know, she wanted to sell things here and there. She's like, well, I'm not doing it for money, right? And I said, yeah, I know that, but you need income, you need a job, and if you're going to be doing these pictures all the day long, right, why not, take an interest in putting some of your work up there for sale and that sort of thing. And so I'd look over things, and to encourage her, I said, I'm willing to buy one of these if you want to sell one. At the time, I couldn't, at the time, I was in the position to do that, And she didn't take me up on it. It just never happened, right? But I remember when I was going through the selection, she said, well, I'm not selling this one, and I'm not selling that one. And I advised her, I said, listen to me. Listen. The ones that you absolutely cannot part with, then I get it. But if you're just holding on to things because you think you're going to miss them, then you're in trouble. Look, it's your drawings. They're your drawings, so you put your prices on them. If they're more valuable to you, then you go ahead and put a price according to that, okay? But don't do... Anyway, it was a big, long discussion. Just there were other issues, too, that came up, I noticed, that I found, and I'm not here to rant against this person the way I did on my last video about some people. But there was honesty issues again, and that's one of the things with me. I get funny about that. I don't like people who are always bullshitting, right? Every time they feel the slightest pressure about something, want to get out of a conversation, or they want to, sometimes it's worse, things they're trying to walk around or whatever, as you're trying to get to know them, and it's to me it was a major turn-off. So I I ended up not buying her work from her, and I kind of broke off contact. I did throw out a shout a few weeks ago just to say, hi, how are you? Do you got any art up there and stuff? Because I had drawn stuff and I wanted to share stuff, whatever. But, other than that, I kind of let it go. But the major thing that I came to realize is that she was tracing her goddamn images all along, and I was more fool me thinking it was all original work and stuff. It was her bullshit and lie should have tipped me off to the fact that she was fucking, deceitful to the artistic core. And it's unfortunate. Like, still, the work is incredible, and it's worth buying. Buying a picture or a print from her, but just total fucking tracing, right? Had another instance where something like that happened to me. It was years ago. Actually, I'm going to save that one for the other episode too, when I mention this other one. But there are people out there, folks. Like, okay, I recently came to the understanding that a lot of people are using lightbox techniques or tracing or using their computer to generate the basic images, and then they elaborate on top in Photoshop and whatnot and all that. Of course, right? But what I'm trying to mention here is that I recently, only in recent years, like in the last 3 years or so, found out that many of the, in the industry, in advertising, back in the day, even with the comic book artists that I came to revere, a lot of swiping and lightboxing technique was coming into play later on as they learned to incorporate those tools into getting the goddamn job done and out, right? And, a lot of people would get dismayed about that. But as I've mentioned before, there was a instance where I was in an art gallery situation. Me and a friend were given a dual show, but at this time we were offered the dual show. I think he was hesitant about it. I was a little hesitant about it, but at this time it was his show, his complete show. And there was a discussion about someone in there that was using photographs. And people were really disheartened by it. And they're talking all this, you're using photographs, I don't think it's right. And all that. But meanwhile, I'm like, well, wait a minute. He's not tracing the photographs. He's not, painting over photocopies like a fucking Andy Warhol idiot or something, right? Oh, and you like all that, don't you? But, he's just using photos. I go, it's next to the real thing. You draw figure drawing. What most of you, a lot of them were complaining about, oh, we want to learn anatomy, but they weren't doing any figure drawing. They weren't like putting a model up there and drawing and learning how to do it, And if you're not going to do it that way, well, naturally you would use references, you idiots. You'd use photographs. What do you think? It's just going to come out of your... You got to get that idea out of your head when you're learning the basics or the fundamentals of drawing, that it's not going to just drop out of your imagination. If you're sitting next to someone who knows his craft and has studied, and these images just drop out of his imagination, don't think to yourself that it's always been that way. You got to learn these things. But anyway, at that time they were going on about the photographs, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? It's called referencing, right? And then, I go, it's already been, he's not tracing them. Look at him work, right? And then then you'd look at the actual paintings themselves, right? And the painters themselves that were showing up for the class, they wanted the anatomy class, right? And they wanted to put together some programs, whatever. So, hang on a sec. Yeah, so this coworker slash painter friend of mine suggested that I teach an anatomy class, which I declined before the show. See, he wanted to do something for me because I was doing some things for him. I was encouraging him by buying his art, and I still have one of his paintings and several of his line drawings. But anyway, I declined, and it wasn't a confidence issue, and I had no problem going up there in front of people. That wasn't what was bothering me. What was bothering me was that I could see at my level I wasn't really qualified to do that. I could see that, but he and perhaps some of his the other people in his various classes there at the gallery couldn't see it. So that was a decline. But when I started noticing which artists were, in fact, talking about the referencing problem and buzzing around, you know what was weird? Like, sometimes when the information is released, you don't really understand. But when you start to look, you see other details that you overlooked. And that was the fact that the ones that were doing the complaining were the shittier artists. Isn't that weird? Right? Those people are trying to learn the craft, right? But then they're going to come and condemn the person that was showing them how to do it. That's crazy. But common. But anyway, I'm going to have to speed this one up. And give me 1 second. I'm going to fix something here. Yeah, I'm going to have to speed this one up here because I got to get it to the person. So let me get those close-ups on the shot. And just remind you of something else, though. Don't mix up referencing with other things, okay? It's okay to do it. But what I'm trying to tell you, too, is that when you're trying to capture the likeness, you don't have to do it. It takes longer, a little bit longer, to get things right when you're eyeballing it or freehanding. You get faster with it, but you don't have to do it. And when you don't do it, maybe you'll find that satisfaction of saying that, you didn't trace your images, etc., etc. Like, no, I'm really... Okay. First of all, let me point something out. Just as a reminder, I'm really happy with the way this image turned out. It's not exacted image. I don't need to trace it. It's not necessary. What I'm saying is, the point is with your drawing is you want it to achieve what you set out for it to achieve, right? I'm saying I'm not going to tell people not to do things or don't use those what some people would call crutches, or I'm not, I don't have a right to do that. But what I'm saying is, if you stick with it, you're gonna find you don't have to. And what some of you, like I say, will find is that you'll be able to maintain your own artistic integrity, and it's sort of like a confidence booster in that regard. Okay, but anyway, it's not about that. Let me also, while I have it up here, point out some things concerning this drawing, which give it its strength. Like, there's going to be certain works that you'll come across. Like, a lot of my stuff is comic booky. Like, I just finished, well, not finished, I'm still doing it, but a series on the Crayons and Grantrey Lawrence cartoon series from the 67 Spider-Man slot, right? And that's all involving very simple line work. And I was trying to render the images, the repeat images or cell work that they put over the backgrounds of the figures, right? And that involves like really loose and, undetailed ink work. I don't know how they actually do it in animation, but what I mean is rendering those images, which I did. I wanted to get good with the brushwork, and I went all about that's not photorealism. So I want to point something out about this drawing now, or this one. It's India ink. It's also Sharpies, right? And I mentioned these things before, but it's also some microns and a little bit in certain spots where it was needed. Little tiny touches of a white acrylic paint, right, as a correction fluid, because it was going to be a black and white image. What the hell, right? Now, the thing about it, the impact of the face, the way that came out, and I'll explain a little bit why it came out that way, compared to these hands, like it's like I'm really happy with the image, but when I look at the outline work that I put in here with the paintbrush and ink here, right? Unlike the shading, right? Very different things. It almost looks like an intrusion when you look at the hands. It looks like an intrusion, like, okay, here you got like comic book line work with a, contour black line around it, right? But you see, I'm going for it at this point, and I'm laying things on top and whatever, and I just keep going, and I'm thinking as I'm going, and going as I'm thinking, as I've said, right? So
it's not until I stood back and looked at the finished product I thought, well, that's kind of funny. It's you know, it's pretty good, like the form's there and all that, but it's kind of an intrusion to, like, there's two different styles happening here, right? And anyway, I think it's a fairly strong piece, but what gives certain drawings the strength of realism, you know, even if you're just doing black and line work, like right away, if you're doing line work or comic book imagery, right away, you've sacrificed a certain amount of realism. Why? Because it involves black lines, whether they be thick or whether they be thin. But I think the strength of this one was an experiment I came across and started utilizing a while ago here and there, and that's with dyeing black markers or dyeing Sharpies, right? As they dye, you know, you can use the felt on the paper and it still comes out, but like a gray smear sort of thing. I thought, oh, I used to just throw them out. I don't do that anymore, folks. I'm keeping them because I want to use them or utilize them as for skin tones. Keep that one under your hat. Go ahead and use that. A lot you could go. I mean, I started thinking about it. You know, it's like a. I definitely do this before I use Zipatone. I know that now because it gives a realistic tone. And this darker portion in here, that was done with a dyeing like box marker. You know, those big fat markers that aren't even really made for art, for writing on boxes and in factories and that sort of stuff. Yeah, it was one of those dyeing, and I smudged that in. Now, that gives it its strength. The other thing, I'm going to just touch upon this once in a while. I'm going to say it. You're going to hear me say it over and over again, but I'm not going to go on and on about it, is don't neglect your cracked shadows, especially if you see it in your reference, right? Oh, don't neglect those cracked shadows. Leave those in. They give form and weight. Cracked shadow on the hair here. See that? Cracked shadow on the ear. It gives, it really, don't, that's all I'm going to say. Don't scrimp on your cracked shadowing. Leave those in. They're very powerful. And that's, you know, those are things that can give a drawing weight. And I'll show you something about those black markers too. I just want to repeat. Yeah, some of you may remember this one, right? Again, the strength with this, you know, it's again, it's not people, so it doesn't, you know, it doesn't require as much skill. The strength with this was, of course, the detail on the knurling. But the other thing was utilizing those worn out fading markers to get a gray hue in your black and white work. Up here, too, along the barrel. That gray, it gives it a real steel kind of look, a real steel sheen. And it's those kind of things. I want to say something about that, too. Fuck. I'm telling you, like a lot of those little tricks or whatever, they're not tricks like, I don't think artists pass them on to people and say, hey, here's what you can do here. They're just things you start to notice, but more so, they're things that, when I say notice, you stumble across them by accident. But the way you really learn them is by doing. You know, as you're learning, your hand, it's almost like your hand gets intimidated to do things. And sometimes you just got to go in there and do it. Just attack it. Right? You come in something like this and you got all these tones on a face and you're trying to draw this picture. You think, how would I draw that? Well, I'm telling you, this isn't really... Oops, sorry. Let's fix that. Clumsy. This isn't really drawn. It's just blended in with these coarse markers, and you're going to see that when I bring the camera up close. Okay? But these little tricks, well, like, you know, you know, in the comic book thing, they were starting to use zipatones and stuff in the, you know, what was it, in the early 70s, I guess. I don't know. But in this case, it would be that technique there, right? But there are other things too. I'm telling you, folks, some of the most subtle strokes and whimsical things can give you weird effects. Okay, here's a couple of drawings that paintings, acrylic on painter. I got them in plastic right now, but see that moon? Okay, what that moon reminds me of, right? You see it there? It in all its elaborate form. It's just, folks, I'm telling. Like when you look at old, a lot of times when we look back at one of the greatest comic book artists ever, Wally Wood, and look at some of his stuff from Mad Magazine or his science fiction work, when you look at some of the striking things that make you go, wow, this is really dynamic, and something is the lighting, is use of black and white. Whereas here, I'm telling you, this image of the moon here in white opaque paint. Hold on a second. Sorry, folks. My dragon decided to do a balancing act on his food dish, rattling it around while I'm filming. Anyway, you look at that image, and, you know, it's another case of one of those things where you say, oh, wow, that's, you know, that's kind of intimidating. I don't know how to do that. I guess that's a matter of talent. Are you kidding me? I'm going to tell you something about this. This is something that I did on a whim, okay? Once upon a time with some black, not this particular drawing, but with some black ink, you know, on white paper. All these, the craters and stuff, look, it's a real, I'm telling you, hold on a second here. Telling you, don't let them bullshit you. And actually, they don't bullshit you. They just put it up there. But don't be intimidated by these kind of things. I'm telling you, this is nothing. What do you think? You know, you think this was a reference shot? I looked at the moon and said, oh yeah, okay, well, you gotta get the little, oh, draw that in. And bullshit! Look, what it is coarse whitewash on the edge. On the outside, it's brighter. As you get in, there's less of the white over the dark, that darkened peacock blue hue that I went for there. As you get in closer, there's less of it. So you're just flecking the white over the blue. You're not drawing it really, per se. You got your paintbrush in there, and it's just fleck, 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 fleck. The only thing I would say is that you want to kind of keep the idea of arcs, right? Like you don't want to draw the crater this way, right? In amongst all the ones going that way, right? That's it. That's it. And these splotches, and they're just splotches, folks. There's nothing there. It's not technical. It's the easiest thing ever. So what I'm saying is, a lot of times when you see these things, don't be intimidated. Look, I got a better shot of that. What? Look at this. Right, you probably remember this one, too. Remember this guy here? Anyway, that light, I don't know what we're doing there. But here's another example. It's the same deal, people. They're just blotches. It's not drawn in with, you know, it's not a laborsome task. You know how quickly these images are made? It's unbelievable. And I might say something about the backgrounds, too. You think all that elaborate background and stuff is like highly skilled endeavor. It's not. Just release yourself from those ideas. When you're talking about figure work and getting anatomy down, that's different, okay? But this sort of thing, like, okay, what gives this the strength? Again, it's the elaborate it's the appearance of the crater work and the idea of modulations towards the edge of the, right? And look what we have there again. See the crack? Damn it. See the crack shadow at the bottom of it? That gives it that power. So what I'm saying is, and I can show you background after background after background, where, you know, even people that are doing nature, they'll do background skies that look so wonderful, the clouds and stuff. I have a painting of the clouds. It took me like, oh my god. These things take like 5-6 minutes. Tops. Not even. Oh god, you could knock it out in 2 minutes. It's ridiculous. The paint strokes is what I'm talking about. If anything, by showing you those things and pointing them out, I just want to say, don't be intimidated by what you're seeing. These things come from knowing how to do it. And some of the things, like these 3 examples that I've been showing you, come easy, and they're nothing. They involve no skill. They're just tricks. But once you get to know how to do it, your hand and mind, that you've got it forever. You know, like I said, though, figure work and you know, faces and profiles and portraits, different story. Now, let's take a look at this guy here up close, shall we? So we can get a better idea. Well, first of all, I'm running out of cord here and time. I got to get a move on. Let's go right up close to it and just, I don't know, I'm just going to point the camera in it and at it. See if we can not expose something for you here, right? Get the light on there, various lights. I want to get right up on his face so you can see the actual coarseness of the line, so that you're not intimidated by what you see when you're standing back looking at it. You see that? For example, on the jaw there, look at that stuff. Let's look at it close, right? Oh boy, this is difficult, folks. You see that? You see the blotchy, like when you get up close, you see that you can see the evidence of the artist's hand there, right? See, I came in here and there were times where I blotched up. There's pockets and stuff. It almost looks like pock marks. There's spots where the ink came out a bit too much and stuff. But it's the overall effect that you got to keep in mind. And when I was determining his cheekbone, I just winged it. Yeah, it's probably right about here, along the flare of the nose to the ear, and curve it up here in some arcs. Make sure to leave some white here on the forehead. And these whites on the cheek and the forehead, the chin and stuff, they're not conducive with the drawing, right? Because I wasn't trying to copy the drawing per se. I just needed those curves, radiuses, and those distinct features of the face that made this character the character. Yeah, well, let's just take a look, I guess. Take a look all over there. And, look at the various lines and stuff. Let's see. You can see the evidence of the handwork there. I'm just going to leave it at that because I got to get this guy back in the frame and get out the door and get it to the young man that requested it. Okay? Thanks for watching.